Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining the webinar this afternoon, which is hosted by Dynamo. For those of you who don't know who Dynamo is, it is a technology network in the northeast of England, and we have the great benefit of oversight of the digital and tech sector. But you don't have to have a knowledge of that particular sector to understand that actually the demand for skills in the digital sector at the moment is absolutely huge. It's how we look at fulfilling that demand and being able to respond in a considered and tailored way. And that's why this afternoon we decided to do this webinar so that you can actually look at how, as employers and potential trainees, you can access these much demanded skills in the region. Without further ado, I will introduce you to Steve Morris, who is going to shortly take over. He will tell you exactly what they do and hopefully give you some insight into the opportunities and the benefits that you can have from upskilling your staff at no cost to the organisation. It's something that they work very hard to maintain in writing their bids, appealing for funding, so that everybody can take advantage of it and tap into this nationwide skills pool. It is worth saying that although they are very much a northeast based company, they actually have 52 sites across the country and are operating at very much at a national level, but with tailored courses depending on regional demand. I will now switch off my sound and video and hand over to you, Steve. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. My name's Steve Morris. I'm the Commercial Director at Learning Curve Group. I was hoping to be joined by a very able assistant who is actually with Ofsted at this precise moment in time. We have actually 7 companies within the group, and one of them is actually just being Ofsted inspected, and she was supposed to be finished and out, but I think they were late starting the meeting. So as opposed to, I was hoping that it was going to be myself and Nicole who were going to be doing it today, but unfortunately I think you might be just stuck with me, so I apologize in terms of that. As far as the presentation's concerned today, as Dawn sort of said in terms of the introduction, it's about how, I suppose, the world of training and development meets the world of recruitment. We're very clear that we've got a significant shortage at this moment in time of talent, and we've actually got a huge amount of vacancies. And I think one of my slides will just give us some of the numbers basically that we're dealing with. I suppose I'd probably better just start with a very quick introduction in terms of Learning Curve Group. As Dawn kindly said, we're based in County Durham. We do a lot, and a significant amount of our training has been historically in the northeast of England. But more recently we've expanded in terms of geographically, and now we've got 52 offices across the UK, and we've also got a significant amount of delivery that we do sort of online. So we actually really do a total national sort of delivery. Just to give you an idea, in total, there's over 100,000 learners every year that we help and support. 64,000 that we do directly ourselves, and many others that we actually produce learning content that we sell to other training providers. I think the important thing, and you'll find this if you're an employer and you're looking at the world of skills and training, is that it's often extremely challenging. There's a different language basically that operates in the world of training. So we love acronyms, we love abbreviations. They'll talk to you about things like swaps, and sometimes I literally see employers glaze over because they don't understand all the intricacies. Sometimes people in the skills world don't seem to understand all the intricacies. Just to give you a bit of background on myself, I've done 20 years in the recruitment industry. So I used to work for a business called Hayes, and ran their north of England sort of operation, and then I've spent the last 10 years in the skills sort of sector. So I've basically seen it from effectively from both sides of the fence, right? Where are we today? Let's have a look at the market we're in, and it's certainly a very different marketplace from, I think, the one that we were probably expecting as a consequence of the pandemic. Basically the economy and the job market has rebounded incredibly quickly, and we can now see that there's over 1 million vacancies out there. We're hitting sort of record levels now of vacancies, which obviously from a recruitment perspective just makes it harder. We tend to go through different markets, different recruitment cycles. We'll have what we would call in the recruitment industry a sort of job-driven market or a candidate-driven market. We're now in what is absolutely a candidate-driven market, and that basically means that, you know, there are fundamentally, it feels like there are more jobs out there than there are candidates. The challenge from a candidate perspective is always the same, is that most people want the square peg for the absolutely square hole, and what is often the case in a marketplace like we're currently in, it's going to be difficult to achieve that. So I don't need to just harp on and tell you things that you already know, but the marketplace is challenging to try to recruit that square peg for your square hole. And unfortunately, it gets worse, right? In that, in the sector that many of you are actually operating in, that professional, scientific and technical, which includes sort of the IT market particularly, it's been one of the most challenging quarters for them in terms of vacancies, because vacancies are just growing at such a significant sort of rate. So, and it is, you know, I've heard lots of people talk about why are we in this sort of situation? And I think the answer is that there isn't one answer. It's multiple reasons. We've heard sort of Brexit. We've heard lots of people retiring because of the pandemic or changing careers and professions or whatever. But fundamentally, there are, you know, why it's all happened is not really going to necessarily solve all the problems. It's sort of, there are record vacancies at the moment, and we need to look at how we help and come up with a solution for that. Unfortunately, you know, one of the solutions generally seems to be throw money at it, right? Pay people more money, attract them with higher salaries, and that unfortunately is an unsustainable model going forward. So we've everybody's got to come up with different sort of strategies to get around the vacancies and effectively create more talent in the marketplace. Otherwise, we're going to keep getting the same situation, going to keep getting wage demands, basically. So there are a number of options that are actually out there for businesses to sort of recruit, train and develop their staff. And what I want to go through in the next sort of half hour is just talking to you about what those actually are and how you effectively tap into them. So let's have a look at sort of three, what I would call recruitment solutions. Now, unfortunately, as I said, many training organizations talk to you about things like swaps, boot camps, apprenticeships. And for many employers, it's quite difficult to get your head around what do all these actually mean and what are they all about? Well, what they are, in a very simple way, is they're all recruitment pipelines, basically, for your business. And they're all pipelines that are free of charge for you, right? I'll come to apprenticeships in a moment, but if we look at sector-based work academies, what are they, right? In the really simplest form, they're 6 weeks of pre-employment training, right? So it's training that a training provider will do at no cost to you as an employer over a 6-week period before somebody joins your organization. They don't, so training providers will run these sector-based work academy programs, and you as an employer are able to go in and just pick off of those programs the best applicants that you find for them. So, you know, a training provider can work with you to devise what a sector-based work academy would look like. You can actually be heavily involved and actually give material, give time to those sector-based work academies, or you can stand on the touchline and just watch the game sort of play out. You're under no obligation to hire any of the people from these training programs. And it might be people who are retraining as well as people who are sort of currently out of work. But basically, that's what a swap is, if you hear people talking about that. One of the latest things is that the government has been promoting quite heavily are skills boot camps. And these are slightly more meaty and substantial than a sector-based work academy. They're generally sort of 12 to 16 weeks of training. And they can be for both maybe existing staff within your business who might be doing a different job and want to train up, or they could be for people who, again, like a pipeline, wants to join your business. And there's lots of different topics. We have got, I was going to say we were fortunate. We weren't fortunate. We worked hard to secure £3.5 million worth of funding for skills boot camps. So the boot camps are paid for by the government, and we will run a 12 to 16 week training program fundamentally to be decided by the employers as to what they want them training on. So in IT and digital, we're running them. In construction, we're running them. In rail, we're running them as well. And it's just a more sort of substantive pre-employment type training program that we get. Now, and said without any cost for people who are new hires to your business. And then thirdly, as you can see, it may or may not be well known, but many training providers like Learning Curve Group will actually recruit apprentices for you free of charge. So if you were I don't know, looking for a IT digital apprentice, Learning Curve Group would take that vacancy, would advertise it, promote it through our social media channels, would advertise it on the apprenticeship jobs board, and literally source and select candidates for you to then sort of interview. And I'm hopeful most employers have sort of heard of this as a route. We don't charge, we're not a recruitment agency. All we ask at the end of it is that you put this person on to an apprenticeship, and there's a number of different relevant apprenticeships. So what there are at least three different pathways effectively there, through swaps, through boot camps, through apprenticeship recruitment, that can actually help your business with their recruitment need. And we do hire experienced people as well as inexperienced people. And so if anybody's interested in any of those, listen, I'm quite happy to take questions during this session, or we can pick up with individuals sort of separately. So from a recruitment perspective, there are, as I said, three potential options there that could help. If you're struggling with your recruitment and you're not involved in any of those, then maybe now's the time to sort of look further. So recruitment's probably the first part of the challenge, and then there's also the challenge, I suppose, of either training your existing sort of workforce or retraining part of your workforce, because we all know that jobs of the future are not going to be the same as the jobs of today, and you can see some fairly significant statistics there that the government reckon that UK business spends about £42 billion on annual training. Now, £42 billion used to always seem to be a really lot of money, and I think because of what's happened with the pandemic, we talk about billions like we used to talk about millions. But as you can see, there's 99 million training days being delivered And our sector, the business services sector, so sort of IT and business services, saw the largest increase in expenditure there, spending 11.4 billion on training. So there's a lot of money being spent on training. And one of the things I wanted to try to sort of show you is that there's an opportunity to use other training resources that have been built for which there is no cost. And I've tried to just again give you an idea of 3 of them. Some of you might think, hang on, there's some repetition here, but let me talk to you about that. One of the ones that certainly Learning Curve promotes quite heavily, and it's become one of the leading UK organisations for, is something that we call flexible learning, right? Again, what does that mean? What is flexible learning? Well, people call it lots of different things. It might also be known as online learning, remote learning, distance learning, but what it is effectively sort of like short. And when I say short, we often advertise that these courses can take up to 6 weeks. The last course that I did of flexible learning, I did about 3.5 hours on a Saturday morning. I did about 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and got past the course and got my certificate. And it's a qualification that you do. But we offer, again, over 50 odd different courses that people can do. These are all funded by the government. The government provides something called Adult Education Budget, AEB for short, and for many years now, there's been about £1.5 billion of AEB that the government have actually paid out to support additional training for both employed and unemployed individuals. And you know, there's now courses in digital skills, cyber skills, coding, as you can see. They're not bite-sized learning, as in it's not watch a 1 hour YouTube video. It's what we call accredited learning. What does that mean? It basically means there's a qualification at the end of it all. So we use awarding bodies who award a qualification. There's no big exam or big test. The way it actually works is that a learner, one of your staff would enroll for one of these courses. There's about a 20-minute enrollment process that they need to complete. We need to capture certain bits of information. Where do they live? All of that sort of stuff. And then we release the learning content through our learner management system. At that same time, the learner is allocated one of our 300 tutors who will help them through the course. And there's basically like an online workbook that they work through, and then they answer questions at the back of that workbook. There's no big test, as I said, at the end of it all, and the tutor is there to support them. It's about how do we teach people to learn, not do we try to pass them or fail them on an exam or a test. The tutor will support them if they're struggling with any answers. The tutor will support them, and then the tutor actually marks the final answers that are submitted by the learner. So many of those are sent off for moderation to the awarding body to check, and then probably 3-4 weeks later, learners will get a certificate through the post, basically, that says they passed that qualification. It's a level 2 qualification, so that's sort of GCSE type level. There's also higher level ones again, which I'll talk to you about, but these are great ways to get people training. Many organizations use this as part of their CPD. Not surprisingly, during the COP summit, we've seen an increase in, we run a course in sustainability and environmental sort of best practice. We've seen an increase in that. Throughout the pandemic, we run 3 courses on mental health. We've seen significant increase in those, and these courses are all sort of funded, as I said, out of the adult education budget. So many businesses use them for their CPD within their organization. you know, if you're not using them, then again, it's something I think generally people should, I would certainly strongly advise that they have a look at. Apprenticeships are obviously a really good part of training. We said they can be used for recruitment, but obviously, and that's free recruitment, but they can be used for training. When we said the free, obviously they're sort of free because it's paid for out of the levy. If you're a big enough organisation, then it comes out of your levy pot. If you're a smaller organisation who's not a levy payer, then 95% of it is funded by the government. In certain cases, we can get other organisations will transfer some of their levy pot to you, so you don't have anything to pay. So, you know, apprenticeships, we deliver over 40 different apprenticeships, but there are hundreds of different apprenticeships sort of out there that, again, businesses just need to be aware of and look at that as a way of sort of training their staff. And then, as I mentioned previously, skills boot camps can actually be used for your own employees, right? So people who have joined the organisation already, as opposed to people who are looking to join the organisation. There is a cost, there's a contribution that the government sort of insists on for that, but skills boot camps can become a very, very affordable solution in terms of training existing sort of staff. So again, there's a raft of different solutions there, many of which are at no cost to any of your individual employees or to you as a business to make use of. And then if we look at it as a sequence of recruit, train, and then further develop, right? So it's not basic level sort of training, it's much more higher level training. There's a absolute focus by the government that they want people to develop further their skill set. I think as a G7 nation, we're still unfortunately ranked fairly low for our working population, that our skill level is not as high as as many of our comparator nations are. And as you can see there from the Chamber of Commerce, right, you know, they want to increase the focus on skills in the workplace, right, because we know that will enable people to advance in their careers and develop even further. So the government are absolutely committed to, this is not a political statement by the way, but the government are absolutely committed to sort of fund staff development further as well. So again, it's worth just being aware of some of the options that are available to you. I talked about the flexible learning, and those were level 2 courses, so they're really sort of like GCSE type level courses. The level 3s are much more pitched at sort of A-level type level, and there's again, you will hear something called the National Skills Fund maybe banded around, but the government has set up additional sort of funding to support people who don't already have a level 3 qualification, right? Now, with the level 2 ones, I've done my degree and I'm still eligible to do a level 2. With a level 3 course, what the government currently are doing is saying that they'll only fund people who haven't already got an A-level equivalent course, and that's fully fund them, so there is no cost to them. There are, and so, you know, again, I can happily provide more information afterwards, but there's a raft of courses that are actually then available for people to develop themselves further. The government are also pushing something called the lifelong loan entitlement. And I suppose if you think it in terms of universities and how that model sort of works, is that the government want to introduce the prospective loans, which is very much like the university model, where you will borrow and you will pay back over time, provided that your earnings are above a certain level, because the government want to make it possible for anybody at any stage throughout their life to develop themselves sort of further. So again, listen, and there's more to come in this sort of space, but there is going to be much more available in terms of different courses for people to actually do. And from an employer perspective, there is no cost for this. It is the employee that effectively takes out the loan rather than the employer. Now, again, I'm not one for forcing people down this route. It needs to be an optional one. It's going to be something that people want to do. It's their loan. So, but again, worth being aware of the landscape. We'll keep people notified as the government releases more information on this. And then, certainly not last but not least, there's higher level apprenticeships. So, typically organisations like us deliver sort of level 2 through to level 5, which is sort of like a foundation degree type level. The higher level ones, level 6 and 7, are degree and sort of postgrad type level. There are a number of apprenticeships that are still available in that space as well. So again, these can all be used for development of your workforce, utilising monies that you're already paying through your levy, or getting them 95% funded if you're a small business. So I suppose the purpose really of the session today was to try to make sure that organisations are absolutely aware that there is more out there for them in terms of on the skills landscape to both recruit, train and develop their staff. So what we wanted to just show in a very, very quick sort of slide there is just how might it work, right? How might all of this sort of hang together? And I suppose if you looked at a perfect model, you could fundamentally, and you could mix and change these around slightly, but you could actually recruit somebody by using a digital boot camp, and we've got funding in the Northeast to run these programs that then you can take people off the back of if you find the right applicants that have then got some basic sort of skills. You bring them on board. You can then utilize some of the flexible learning training to actually give them additional training in areas like cybersecurity, and then you can actually give them an apprenticeship or 2 apprenticeships, one after the other, that might give them a basic level and then allow them to do a degree level sort of apprenticeship. And this would fundamentally create a sort of a model that is really, in employer speak, a recruit, train, develop model, but actually has different names in the skills sector. So what we're trying to just achieve here is just a little bit of demystification, really, as to what it actually looks like, basically. So there hopefully gives you an idea. I'm sorry that Nicole Bewley wasn't able to sort of join us today, but I thought, I'll press on sort of regardless. I don't know if we want to, Claire, do we want to pick up some of the questions? Do you want me to have a look at what we've got in the chat, if there's anything relevant?
Yeah, Steve, there's no questions come through as yet.
Yeah.
Let me see if anyone's got any questions, just pop them in the Q&A there for Steve.
As I said, listen, I don't want to pressure people to have to ask a question. It's not an interview. It's meant to be a bit of an information sort of session. But if there are any bits that people want to ask, please feel free. If not, listen, my email address is actually on there. If people wanted to email anything to me and ask any points, I'm happily pick up and respond to you. Because unfortunately, what we do find is and I don't know why the skills sector has slightly done it, but it's created this sort of world of acronyms and titles that really sometimes just don't mean anything to people who are not in the skills world. And I think it's incumbent upon training providers like Learning Curve to go through this sort I say, demystification and just simplify things for employers. So I guess if there's no questions, then to some extent we might as well call a line under it. Claire, do you think?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Thanks ever so much, Steve. And then for everyone that's attending, it has been recorded. So we will share this on our socials as well. If you've got any questions at all for Steve, then obviously you can see his email address is on there, as he says. But yes, thanks ever so much for attending, and we will let you know of any future events that we have coming up with Learning Curve Group. But thanks ever so much, Steve.
Pleasure. Cheers, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you.